The names of all the people involved in the events stated below have been changed to protect identities, and the exact locations where these events happened have changed as well. It's up to you to decide whether you believe what happened or not. All I can offer you is my word and my recollections of the horrid event.
I live near a dusty gravel road that extends up the main highway through a series of roads like a bunch of blood vessels rushing to meet the heart. The road is called BlackRIdge Road, and it's impossibly long and hilly. My road happens to be paved like a main highway, and even though it's easier to get to the main highway via walking up a hill to the intersection, I frequently travel the dirt road in order to see two of my best friends. The one, Kevin, lives just around the corner. He's easier to get to, so we all usually just meet up at his house. The other, Nick, lives about a half a mile down this gravel road. It's such a trouble to get there that we don't walk up there that often. Usually, we travel to his house to have a cigarette or two in solitude, or maybe play around with some of his various musical instruments. Now, I've noted the location of these boys, mostly because where they live plays an important part to this tale. There was an old abandoned house near the road that leads to Nick's driveway. We'd hear that it was supposedly haunted. So, as luck would have it, Kevin agreed with me one day to check it out. To be honest, I wish now that he hadn't agreed. If he hadn't, then the horrible events of that night would not have transgressed. I'm getting off track though. So we made the trek up to the abandoned house, traveling almost all the way to Nick's house, as Kevin noted once we got there. What we saw was astonishing, to say the least. On the grounds was a two-story house, painted entirely with blue paint. A porch swing sat off of its chains on the cement front porch, and a pile of junk sat near the pathway where the gigantic tree stood. Weeds were choking out what was apparently a lawn at some point. It was at this point that we stepped onto the property and walked towards the house. Getting in was easy, mostly because there was no front door to the place, from what I could tell. The entire second floor would be inaccessible for exploration. The stairs were almost completely smashed. The entire house looked like 10 or 12 murders went on at once. The house was trashed beyond belief, so we wouldn't be able to do anything constructive or explore much. However, there was a clear pathway to the back door, and plenty of stuff to smash. And after finding a few good-sized branches, Kevin decided that we would call Nick and see if he wanted to play a little baseball with us. We waited a little bit for Nick to get ready and head over there, as it was pretty chilly that day. While we were waiting, I felt like we were being watched though. I looked around and thought I saw something moving around the top of the stairs that were too high to climb up, but I shrugged it off. Kevin wouldn't believe me anyways. So Nick arrived and we grabbed our respective branches and took aim at anything that looked fragile. We spent another hour or so doing that, but all the while, I still felt like I was being watched. I scanned the area, and to my horror, I saw what appeared to be a rotting face with no eyes, peering down at me from the stairs. Once I looked back though, it was gone. I told Nick and Kevin that we should probably head home. They decided that we should explore the large field behind the house for something else to do. "Stop being such a pussy," shouted Nick as he kicked the rotting wooden back door into splinters. I decided to do just as he said and obliged to hang out with him. After all, it was my idea to come up here. Searching the sheds, we didn't find much in the way of breakable objects. We found some really cool stuff though. It's a shame we didn't just take it with us. It was around the time that we finished exploring the last shed in the field that we heard a large crash come from the house. Kevin was first to enter the house. He shouted for us to check it out. We entered and noticed a toilet had fallen through the moldy ceiling into where the couch should have been. I once again protested that we should go home. The ceiling was largely unsupported and damaged. What with the stairs being gone and all the water spots and mold, this time they actually listened and left with me. We had just gotten out onto the road when suddenly, another crash resounded through the house, followed by a loud groan. One look through the window was enough to convince us to run. A figure looked like it was once a human was getting to its feet. We booked it, fearing that the thing was going to shamble out of the house after us. We didn't stop running until we got back to Kevin's house. After all was said and done, I was in involuntary tears from the dry air hitting my eyes, and my legs were jelly. Kevin and Nick were obviously fatigued as well, though they were in better shape than I was at the time. We agreed never to speak of the event, though they've allowed me to publish the tale online, so long as I change their names to protect their identities. That was about 3 years ago, and the house burned down about 6 months after that. The police and firefighters blamed it on some stoners that accidentally dropped a lit joint too close to some flammable material and sent it up in flames. The owner was never contacted about the incident. I originally took a trip up to Nick's house though. Although there's almost no trace of the house left, I still get a strange feeling whenever I walk by the property. And a large branch of the old tree placed on the driveway to prevent people from approaching the rubble. Obviously, this isn't really enough to prevent people from getting in, but I hope it's warning enough to keep people from going to that evil place in the future.